Hello, everyone.
Hey there, folks.
This is Amanda.
This is Rita.
And you're listening to I Don't Know Her,
the podcast where we talk about women and some other folks
that you've probably never heard of.
But you should have. And today, you're gonna.
I thought you were going to do your bonus.
Well, I'm waiting. I'm gonna lead into it. Okay, so, and it's also a bonus.
Yes, we're to introduce our next season, which is season 4.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Right.
We thought we would do a little catch up because some things that we talked about last season have changed. And
in a very big way.
And so we haven't had a new episode up yet, which we wanted to by this time, and we'll explain why that happened and also what you can look forward to this season and some other things. So we're going to do a little bonus that is also a regular.
Well, I think one of the biggest changes is Amanda had their surgery.
I sure did.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that my surgery is different from what we talked about.
In a big way.
Yes. Will you remind our listeners what I had originally talked about? Because not everybody heard that episode.
Oh, okay. Well, Amanda wanted to have a breast reduction, and it ended up turning into a full top surgery, which
right.
I've had a couple people ask me, because I just said it because I know what it is, and what is that? Is a full removal. It's a full double mastectomy.
Yes, I had a full double mastectomy, and so I had forgotten that decision had been made after we recorded that bonus episode. And so I'd had a friend who didn't know that I had made that choice.
Oh.
Was like, wait, what? After I got my surgery.
Oh, geez.
Wait, what? And I was like, oh my God, I didn't update anybody. I didn't even think about it. I forgot that it had been recorded before that choice was made.
So did I. I forgot.
So some people ask me like, oh, well, what made you change your mind? Because aren't you non-binary, not FTM or female to male or whatever you want to call
mm-hmm.
it. Vernacular can change on that. And yes, that's true. I do identify as non-binary. But I kept having this like panic that they were not going to be small enough.
Yeah, you talked about it a lot.
Yeah, I was really, really concerned that they were not going to get it small enough. They were not going to get it small enough. They were not going to get it small enough. And finally, my wife was like, why don't you just get the whole thing done?
Mm-hmm.
Then you don't have to worry about that. It's not going to be an issue. Because then I had started talking about like, well, maybe I could microdose testosterone if they're too large, and then that would shrink them a little bit. And I was like, wait, now you're talking about hormones? Okay.
That was not on the table.
And granted, I still might microdose testosterone, but for completely different reasons. But if the reason was that I was afraid that the surgery wasn't going to be the thing I want,
mm-hmm.
I started to examine what it is I want and why I'm doing something different than
mm-hmm.
what I want. Because it became very clear to me that what I wanted was just a flat chest.
Yes.
And why was I trying to ride in the middle if that's not what I really wanted?
Mm-hmm.
And there are definitely people out there who do want that. And they exist. And I hope they get the surgery they want and they get the size they want. But for me, it was too much of a risk to come out of it having done this major surgery and not look or feel the way I wanted to feel.
Yeah. And when you did tell me like it's just going to be full top surgery, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, why toe that line? Why gamble with your satisfaction of how it's going to be? Because you were really fretting about it.
I really was. I mean, even on that episode, I talked about like being worried that it wasn't going to be small enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that it's pretty easy to make yourself look like you have breasts when you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask your everyday drag queen. So there isn't an issue there. Like I could always get inserts if I wanted to.
Yeah, or like a chest plate or something.
Yeah, there are options if I want to have the illusion of breasts And I currently cannot imagine wanting that at the moment, but there might be an outfit I want to wear.
Yeah.
Where it would look better with the illusion of breasts. So maybe one day I'll do that. So I went with a complete top surgery that happened on August 9th. So less than a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a good recovery. Like everything is going well, but it has been much more painful than I had anticipated. Part of that has to do with I'm an impatient person, so I'm like,
really?
Like, why isn't it done hurting yet? Oh, you mean like all of my nerves got severed and my skin detached from my tissue and all of my tissue removed and then re-sewn together? And I'm like, why aren't we done hurting yet? Well, because it was an incredibly massive major surgery.
Yeah, and it's a very restrictive surgery too. So like, we're talking about a box of movement that Amanda can do. Cannot pull those elbows all the way up. Cannot think about putting your hair in a ponytail. Not going to happen. Yeah.
So I cut my hair to prepare for the surgery. I am able to do most of my like raising and stuff, but it is difficult to put my elbow above my shoulder. But I can do it. But they tell you to be careful with that movement because you can stretch your incisions and make wider, thicker scars as it heals. It's not really because of the like tissue or whatever. It's because of the scarring. But so I also had this fun thing that only happens to about 30% of patients, which was that I started to have really intense nerve pain after about 2 weeks after 2 to 3 weeks of the surgery. That pain greatly outweighed any of the tissue pain. And like tissue pain you can handle with like anti-inflammatories and pain medications. You can't with nerve pain. You cannot handle it with regular pain medication. It has to be a specific medication that targets your nerves. So I just got put on a new medication to help me with that nerve pain. Right when we were like, hey, we're going to record a new episode. Major side effect of it is
drowsiness.
Yeah. So I like texted Rita and I was like, I am just asleep.
And I was like, it's fine. It's fine.
So apologies that you're not getting a well-researched, cool story today because I have one. It's just really adjusting to this new nerve pain medication, but it's working. And that's what I love.
And I know it's like easier for me to say than I know it is for Amanda to do. But I'm like, this is like in this journey, this is the little bump. And then it's going to be years of being happy.
Yeah.
And I know right now it's rough, but it's just going to be for now. And we'll get over it. We'll get over that hill.
Yeah. I mean, when I talk about that pain was intense. Like I currently am feeling the normal amount of pain. Like, oh, I can now tell that my tissue hurts. I couldn't even tell before because it just was so intensely painful to just breathe. And it was just getting to that point where it was like, it was literally driving me crazy. Like I was starting to have like suicidal thoughts because the intensity of that pain was getting to me.
Well, it's like torture.
It felt like it for sure. I mean, what I told everybody is it felt like somebody took like a little Zen garden rake and sharpened the tines and then just raked it across me. Ouch. And it was like, if it wasn't actively being raked, then it was being like, when you use like a compression bandage, but imagine if that compression bandage was sandpaper.
Full of needles.
So that's what it was feeling like. And I was really struggling with that amount of pain. Like I'm a pretty gregarious person and I like to be social. I like to go out and do things. I like to, go to a brewery and meet with a friend. And there was this event here in town called Pride and Perry, which I go to every year. And I was very excited to go. It was like, okay, I'm going to have an outing. Because I've been spending most of my time on the couch watching Beat Bobby Flay, which we'll get to. I hate that man. And I went to Pride and Perry, was really excited to go. I had lunch. We went into 2 shops. A friend met us, and I thought I was going to be able to hang out with her. And probably 20 minutes in, I was like, I have to go home. Mm-hmm. I'm in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
It's like I could do like 2 hours maybe of just walking around and sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like doing anything real fantastic that requires a lot of energy. So
yeah. And we went to dinner, like a week and a half ago. We went to dinner and then we went and had cocktails. And I kept asking, like, do you need to go home? Because I could see the energy level just going down. And I was like, I don't want to push you into, this is fine. Like, we can go and sit on the couch and watch Beat Bobby Flay.
Yes. And that night I actually did have a little bit more energy. I mean, I was still in a lot of pain though, but I sometimes it's like, I have this really dumb idea that it's mind over matter. I'm like, if I just will myself through it, it'll be fine. That's incorrect.
Yes.
It won't be fine. It hurts.
Yeah. You have to be willing to say, okay, I'm done.
And the next day, it's worse. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I'm learning in this journey is that, like, even if at that moment I think, oh, I'm feeling better than normal, I can do all of these things, I should just not, because then the next day I feel like I've been set back like 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. So I am not at work yet. I was supposed to go back tomorrow, but we had to make a decision by Friday. And by Friday, I was in a terrible amount of pain. Mm-hmm. And that's when they prescribed me this medication. So it's only been a couple of days that I have been on this medication. So I still don't know like how much I can take before I fall asleep or how often I should take it before like what's the balance between being awake and not in pain versus falling asleep. So how could I go to work yet if I don't know where that balance is? So, and I still can't lift or pull or push anything that's like heavier than a gallon of milk. So
this is very limiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm not really supposed to like, I don't know, push a book cart full of books, which is like part of my job.
I actually, this reminded me of something stupid. It's not even comparable, but I have such a bad back. And they were like, Rita, go get a box of the new t-shirts that we got shipped to us. It's a 4 foot by 3 foot box full of t-shirts.
It's like your size.
Yes. And so I was like, I'm going to pick this up. And I was like, no, you're not. I literally kicked it down the hall. I got my foot and just pushed it. And my boss stood there and watched me. And he was like, I want to help, but this is too funny. And I was like, I'm not picking up this shit.
I know. Lots of people are like, can you handle this? I was like, my butt can. Like knocking doors closed with my ass. My upper body can't, but you know what can? My lower body.
There you go. Just put your foot up. Start kicking stuff across the counters.
Yeah. So anyway, that's been the big thing that we're dealing with, which is why I wanted to give you guys an update about what's going on, because I didn't want you to think like, have they abandoned us?
We did not.
We did not. We have content coming soon, and we are very grateful that you're hanging on with us and going through this with us.
Yeah. It also was nice to take a break and then it's been a real honor, like being here with you on your journey and with this process. I was terrified when you went into surgery because I thought, like, my mind runs wild. So I'm like, what if they die? That's what I thought. I was like, what if they die? This is the last time, like, I talked to Amanda. Like, I was just so worried.
You were really worried. I think Abby at one point was like, will you tell Rita not to tell you things like that?
Oh, God. I know, and I've been having to learn that too. Like, there's things that I will say or things that I'll maybe be too pushy about. And I'm like, I need to like have a boundary. Like, all I want to do is like hold you.
Put me in a little box.
Yes, and then just have you here. So like, make sure you're okay.
Yeah, and it has been rough, that's for sure. While I was in Tacoma for my surgery, I had my surgery on a Monday. And then Tuesday, I was still in the hotel, and I got a phone call from a number I didn't know, and they left me a voicemail. And I was in and out of, it grogginess because I was still,
Yeah.
recovering from the anesthesia, and I was on a narcotic, and I was like, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
And so I listened to this voicemail, and it is from a woman who says that she is my mother's neighbor in this tiny little town in Montana that my mom lives in. And I thought, this is weird. And so I told Abby. So then Abby called the person back and left the room. But basically she had called to say that my mom was dying.
Mm-hmm.
And then Abby called my Aunt Wendy and talked to her for a little while about my mom and the situation with this neighbor, this very, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I got home from Tacoma on a Wednesday. My mom died that Sunday. So that was 3 weeks ago today, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
or yesterday. And so in addition to adjusting to the recovery of this surgery, which has been extremely painful, I'm also adjusting to not having a mother anymore,
Mm-hmm.
which has been really hard.
It was shocking. Yeah. I mean,
I knew it was going to come someday, but like now?
Yeah.
Right now? God damn it. That's been the general vibe I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's been exceptionally difficult, to be honest.
Yeah, that was a hard one.
Yeah. As you know, if you've been listening to this show for a while, you know that I have a complicated relationship with my mother and that we hadn't been speaking to each other for a very long time. In fact, we last spoke to each other Labor Day weekend 2016.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was quite some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? It's 5 years ago then?
5
or 6 years. So it's been a long time since we talked, and I'm not going to get into the details of why that was, but basically she had asked me to not talk about something that was my right to talk about, and if I wanted to talk about it, then I could and should never speak to her again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agreed that we should never speak again if that was the condition of her relationship with me.
Yeah, you don't throw shit like that on the table and expect the other person to not respond.
Yeah, so we just didn't speak anymore. It's not been the easiest thing for me to deal with, but I actually in some ways was able to handle her death easier because I'd already lost her.
Mm-hmm.
And had already spent so much time grieving that loss. And so I really wasn't that like shocked or hurt or, those feelings you have after somebody close to you dies, even if you knew they were sick, that like emptiness, like I had already been feeling that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I'd had some conversations with my family members who had more contact with her that I found out that basically she had decided, I don't know, in the last year or so that she believed me, I guess. And then the fact that we no longer had a relationship didn't make sense anymore. Like, why wouldn't she call me and tell me that? Why wouldn't she try to rekindle our relationship? And she chose to die rather than have a relationship with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to die without having had a relationship.
That to me is tragic.
It was really hard.
Yeah.
I'm not over it. I don't know when I'll ever be over that. It's certainly something I'll talk about and write about.
Mm-hmm.
But, just as we're like discussing my surgery and the recovery, it will never not be interlinked with my grieving my mother's loss.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
It's like you're emotionally in pain and then also physically. It's just all wrapped in one giant ball of too much.
Really has been. Thank God I have a therapist.
Right. Well, the only thing I could think of, like, trying to like, I do this a lot. I try to put myself in people's shoes and try to pick a person who means something to me and try to relate in that way. Like, why would I act like that? Or why would I do that? Or why would I say that? Or why would I, if they said this, why would I feel that way? And I, for me, like, feel like if I were her and I had done that to my child, I would be so ashamed. And I don't know if I could face that. I
think that that's a lot of it. I don't know that makes me feel better though. Like, I think I think I know why. Like, I think I get it, but I just don't think that's a good enough reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
To not have a relationship with your child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, when we talked about Tempest Storm, we talked about Tempest Storm. It was one of the last people we did a show on. Tempest was an exotic dancer who became like one of the highest paid burlesque dancers in the country, and was extremely well known, like dated Elvis Presley, like, you know, made the papers, was a well-known figure. And she had a child who later grew up to be a non-binary person, who does drag, has a drag king. And that person cut off all contact with Tempest. And that was one of the things we talked about, was like, you know, your husband has done that, like, doesn't have contact with his mother. And I, at the time, was like, well, I don't have contact with my mother. Like, we get it. But I think you had asked me if, like, because at one point Tempest just shows up in Evansville, Indiana, which is where her child lived, and adult child, and said, like, I'm in town, I want to see you.
And child said,
no, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I said, if that was me though, like if my mom just randomly showed up in Spokane and called me and was like, hey, I'd like to see you, I would drop literally everything. And so I always, you know, knew that like, I just needed her to see the thing. Like, even if she got halfway there, like, I would have met her halfway. And to find out that after the fact, I think she did get there. Yeah. But never made the call. She just never picked up the phone.
It's almost easier on the other side of it.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't choose me. Cool.
Right. I had come to terms with that. I understood that. Like, okay, you've made this choice. You've decided not to have me in your life because the concept of this other person that you loved was more important.
And now it's
than the reality.
Fucking flipped.
And now it's the other way around. I'm like, wait, so you may have come to terms with the idea that this person did do the things I said, but it wasn't worth saying sorry.
Yeah.
It wasn't worth apologizing for. I wasn't worth apologizing for.
Well, you know that's not true.
I don't.
You were worth it.
I'm worth it to other people, but not to my mother.
That sucks. That's heartbreaking. That's just awful.
I know I'm worth it to the world and to like myself and to you and to my wife, but I clearly wasn't.
Yeah, I was a little, when you did say that on that episode that you would drop everything and meet her somewhere, I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was her choice to begin with. She said,
yeah,
you know,
right.
Because I would have just kept on trying. I would have like done that, you know, that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. That was me.
Yeah.
I was like sending her articles and sending her books to read. And like, I at one point bought Ellen's mom's book that she wrote about like how hard it was for her to come to terms with her daughter's sexuality. I bought my mom a copy and I bought myself a copy and I asked her to read it at the same time. And I like read this whole ass book that I definitely didn't need to read.
Yeah.
and she didn't even open it.
Jeez.
I found it in the house once when I came to visit. And it was, she had actually like pulled books out of the bookshelf and put it behind the other books.
Oh my gosh.
Along with all of the other stuff I had given her.
Jeez.
It was all there, like
yeah,
shoved in a corner and then covered up.
Mm.
And so, you know, I kept trying.
Yeah.
But she asked me to stop trying, so I did.
Yeah.
But I would have still tried if she had showed any initiative, any effort on that other side.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when I got the phone call, one of the things my aunt said to me was, it was just too hard for her.
Well, that's such a cop-out.
I mean,
imagine how hard it was for you.
I would say it was probably equally hard for both of us. But like, put your big girl panties on and give us a call.
And show up. Yeah. Oof.
Thank you for the therapy session.
I'm going to need to like take this energy and put it out to the universe somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, Amanda's right. I do love them more than anything. And I'll always show up.
You will.
I will. Promise.
Speaking of folks who don't show up.
Brilliant transition. Let's get into this fucking tea.
Oh my God. So I have a friend who, like a week before the surgery.
This is mind-boggling.
It was actually on my birthday. It was
folks.
Like my birthday weekend. So yeah, it was a week before the surgery. I was like, hey, she had shown up to my birthday stuff, but had to leave early. Like I had wanted everybody to come see this movie. It was about Billy Tipton, who was a trans man from Spokane, who was this famous jazz musician. And then upon his death, he was quote unquote revealed to be a woman, and it became this media sensation. And so I have a friend named Amos Mack who was one of the filmmakers of this movie about Billy Tipton. And it premiered here in Spokane, and Billy Tipton Jr. was there, and it was a big deal. And it was my birthday, and I was like, everybody should come, blah, blah, blah. And she ended up going home early, so she didn't get to stay for the dinner, which was great. Afterwards, I went to dinner with some folks who came. Everybody in the room was queer, except one person. And a lot of the people in the room were gender expansive. They belonged to some category other than cis. Mm-hmm. So it was really cool, awesome conversation we were having. And I was so sad that she missed out on it, this friend. Mm-hmm. So the next day I was like, hey, do you want to hang out? And she was like, yeah, I'd love that. So we went out to have a glass of wine. And during the course of this time together, she basically revealed that she was just like massively transphobic. Mm-hmm. I didn't see it coming. It was really heartbreaking in a myriad of ways, but like she is convinced that all transphobia is basically a mental illness. She thinks, that transgender identities are a mental illness. In fact, she believes that they're all body dysmorphia.
No. No.
There is a big difference between gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia. Mm-hmm. Body dysmorphia is when you look in the mirror or whatever and you do not see the actuality of your body.
Yes.
Like you weigh 98 pounds, but what you see is something that is much larger than that.
Yeah.
And so you constantly restrict and restrict and restrict.
Mm-hmm.
That's one example of body dysmorphia. There are thousands out there, but that's the one I'm going to use right now to illustrate the difference.
Yeah.
When I look in the mirror, I don't see somebody different than what I look like. Like I see myself.
Yes.
But what myself looks like on the outside doesn't always match how I feel on the inside. Mm-hmm. And one of those specific areas has always been my chest.
Since the day I met you.
Yes.
You've always said that. Even
my wife of 13 years knows this. This is not new information. I never felt comfortable with my chest. Now, not every person who's non-binary or trans feels this same kind of gender dysphoria. They have There's a myriad of ways of feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is way different than looking in the mirror and seeing a different version of yourself, like a twisted, funhouse version.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look in the mirror anymore, because that's the other thing. It's like I've had body dysmorphia in the past.
Yes.
Where you look in the mirror and it's like, oh my God, every crater on my face is like the size of the moon.
Yeah.
And everybody must be staring at them. That's how big they are. Like, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
And gender dysphoria is internal. It is not about like what you look like or whatever. For me, my chest didn't represent the ambiguity I felt inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I like living in that liminal space. And I always have lived in a liminal space of gender in my mind. And I often, around people I felt comfortable with, would absolutely forget what I looked like that I had this very feminine body. I would forget until somebody would remind me.
Mm.
And it would be kind of a little bit of a trip, because I hadn't even realized that I had like disassociated my identity, myself, my existence from the body I inhabited.
Yeah.
And that was why when I started to come out, I had a hard time talking about it. Like, don't ask me questions. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
This is me attempting to use language to explain something that I think defies language.
And if anybody out there is like listening to this and having questions, it is not up to Amanda to explain everything to me, because like you said, I can't explain it. The best advice I can have is listen and watch other people, watch videos, watch interviews, read, because you will be able to absorb that way better and be able to feel their emotions that way.
Yeah, it's the minimum you can do if someone in your life is part of a trans identity or a gender expansive identity or any identity that isn't your own, really, is to just do your best to listen to what others have to say and listen to your person. And what was heartbreaking about that conversation was she was just so convinced that transness didn't exist. Like, it's just a mental illness. Like, it was heartbreaking. And she was saying all of these things right before I was going to have my surgery. She was like, I think you're going to regret it. And also had these really fucked up ideas about what makes somebody a woman versus what doesn't make them a woman. Like, she was like, well, what if after this you decide you're a woman again? I was like,
what?
I was like, well, okay, let's say I do swing back on a spectrum. I can still be a woman without breasts. No, you can't. I was like, what about women who lose their breasts to breast cancer and never get reconstruction? Are they not women? That's different. How?
Elaborate.
I mean, there were just so many contradictions in the conversation that I felt like I was in some kind of surrealist nightmare.
Jeez. And it almost like it was so revealing and so telling of the limitations. You could see the bricks that she built around herself and what this qualifies and what that is and what that also really reveals everything that she's terrified of.
Right.
And doesn't understand. And the thing that pissed me off even more was that she didn't even want to try.
No. Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, have you done any reading? And she was like, no, I don't need to.
Then you don't fucking know a thing.
I was like, you don't need to read about something that you're not familiar with? And you're a teacher? Ma'am, you've chosen the wrong career path if that's how you feel. You need to fucking open your mind to some shit. And I said, you're doing your students a disservice, your trans students. Well, they don't need to know how I feel. I was like, they're going to know how you feel by how you treat them and how you talk to them.
Exactly. It's going to influence your interactions with these people, because when you see these people, you immediately are checkmarking them as mentally ill.
Right.
Yeah.
She was like, well, I still love on them. And I was like, right. But you're pitying them instead of supporting them. There's a big fucking difference in the way that you feel about someone's identity regardless of your words, it shows through. Kids are intuitive. They know what adults think of them. They may not be able to articulate it or really even digest it at the time. Years later, they will reflect back on it and be like, I don't think that was actually appropriate or nice or good or helpful.
Or even stunting, putting stuff in their way purposely.
Abby tried to have a conversation with her separately after that. And it was like...
That did not...
Yeah, she told Abby she just felt sorry for her. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Like, and Abby was like, what? Why? She goes, well, you married this one person and now they're changing. Like,
people change.
Yeah, people change all the time. You don't think Abby has changed since we met?
Yeah.
She looks vastly different from, like, if you look at photos of us from our first 2 years together versus now, we both look vastly different.
Yeah.
We've changed considerably. Everybody does. That's why marriage is hard.
Yeah.
Everybody's changing all the time, and you have to navigate how to change with them or accept those changes or not. Because that's also a thing people can do. Be like, you've changed beyond my capacity to be okay with.
Yeah.
That's not our situation. Also, not any of your business.
Right? Yeah. So just fucking bye. Like, adios. Like, when Amanda told me that, I was furious. So fucking I was like, where can I find her? I like texted Rita and then she called me and I was bawling. Yeah.
Like, just hiccuping with like sobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was not great. But I always try to find like what is the positive that I can get out of this really tragic thing. Because it was like, she wasn't like a kind of friend either. She was one of my closer friends. A person that I literally had no idea felt this way.
Yeah. And that's so violating because you have people who are a safe place, and when that person's not that safe place anymore, it's just like one more rug that just gets ripped out from underneath you.
Yes. And that sucks. But I think on the plus side or the positive side or whatever, I think it did prepare me for that kind of pushback and hatred from people I don't care about. Because it turns out when it comes from somebody you care about, it like hurts.
A little bit.
And when it comes from people that you don't necessarily have that like space for in your heart, you can brush it off a lot easier because you know what it's like when it actually means something.
Yeah.
You can be like, oh, okay, buddy. Sure. Here's your cookie.
Well, one thing that was like really cool to be a witness to was, having known Amanda when you did have breasts. And then I actually got to see after, post-surgery. Amanda was like, do you want to see? And I was like, my first instinct was like, I don't know, because I was scared. Yeah. I thought it's going to be like bruised and like cut and it's going to look scary. Like, I'm not sure if I want to see this or see Amanda in pain like that. And then I was like, sure, why not? Because of course, I'm just fucking curious. And so Amanda showed me and I literally like lost my breath and like started to tear up, and I'm getting emotional right now. Because I can't explain it either. It was like I saw Amanda for the first time. And I was like, there you are. It was it really made me understand how that body part wasn't you. Because it was like, without it now, I see you, and it's like you're freaking whole. I have no other way to explain it. And
I feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, I complained for I don't even know how long on this podcast, like 25 minutes about the pain. So it is absolutely incredibly wonderful. I can't not look at my reflection.
Yeah. When
I walk by a window or a mirror. like I try on clothes and I run to look at myself in them because I'm so excited.
Yeah.
About this part matching who I am.
Yeah. And it wasn't scary. It wasn't bruised. It wasn't like all crazy cut up and stuff like that. It looked, I think what I said was it looks perfect or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, it looks perfect.
It looks so good.
It looked like that's how it had always been. Honestly.
My surgeon, kids, if you need to go to somebody, you go to Dr. Ueno. She's this brilliant Brazilian American woman who speaks Portuguese and Spanish and English. And she's smart and funny and direct. And she is a perfectionist. So she was like,
love it.
Because I had said, what I'd heard is that people with the size of chest I had prior often have to have what's called a revision surgery later, because like they'll have what's called dog ears, and they're these little like pouches on the side, like underneath their armpits. Yeah. And that happens a lot. And so I just sort of brought it up, and she was like, oh, no. I don't do that. And I was like I thought she meant like I don't do revisions. She was like, oh no, I get it right the first time.
Love it. And when you did tell me that, I was like, I love it.
I love it.
I feel
I love that confidence. Yeah. And she did do a really fantastic job. I'm really happy with it. It still hurts, but I'm really happy.
It looks great.
Yeah. And as soon as I got it done, I absolutely knew that a reduction would not have been the right choice for me.
Good.
I would have woken up, looked at it, and thought, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I knew that deep in my gut. And I was really trying to placate like the world around me rather than my own,
which I think people
desire.
In general do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we question ourselves and we doubt, because obviously those have been planted in us our entire lives. And so I'm really proud that you were so finite in things. You had the bumps in the road, like especially that day where that person hurt you so badly by those words. But I feel like it was still you were even more firm in your decision, that you knew in your heart that this was right.
Yeah.
And people need to do that more. It's like, you know it.
Yeah.
It takes some real digging to get it out and be firm, but
I would say it's really hard if you have a tendency to doubt your decisions. It is so hard when you're making this massive choice that other people are going to question.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
is it worth it? Kind of.
And also like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Man. Yes, I'm fucking sure.
I don't think I ever asked you that once.
No, because you're not an asshole. If somebody says I'm having this surgery, they're probably pretty fucking sure about it. It's not something you do lightly. Are you sure? Are you really sure?
Mm-hmm.
That was how she started the conversation that day. And I was like, yes, I'm very sure.
Yeah.
I couldn't be more sure about anything. And what's interesting is that you are not the first or last person who said that to me. I shared a photo in a group chat with two of my friends who were like, you look like you. Like I'm seeing you for the first time.
Yeah, it's so hard to describe.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but it was like meeting you for the first time. Like you. And I was like, this is okay.
Yes. Okay, so we've had a lot of personal conversations. This is usually the kind of stuff we put up on Patreon, but we're going to do it on our regular channel as well. In order to tell you also that we do have upcoming episodes, but we didn't want to leave you high and dry about why it's taking us so long to get something out.
Yes.
Also, we're going to get some new equipment.
Some fancy stuff.
Real fancy shit. And we're very excited about how we'll sound, but it will also allow us to have more than just the two of us on microphones. We can have up to 4 people on microphones. So We are going to try to have some guests and guest hosts and things like that of that nature in the future. So I really hope you stick with us and tell your friends. And don't forget to become a Patreon supporter. You can join for as little as $3 a month, and we could really use that.
It would be nice.
Yeah. It does take us
help us out.
a lot of time and a lot of money to put on this show. We're really grateful for those of you who already support us. And I mean, you can also go all the way up to $20 a month, because I don't mind that at all.
Okay with that.
And you get a shirt.
How much do you spend on that cup of coffee twice a week?
Here's how I justify it. I spend more at a bar on 2 cocktails.
True.
So in one night, I could have 2 cocktails, or I could have my friend's podcast be supported. I don't know. So thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we are both really excited to get back.
We very much are. And it'll be a nice outlet for us this year, I think. I think this is going to be another hard year.
Yep. But excited to see what this season brings, our guests that we possibly will have, and all of the new subjects that we are going to bring to your table.
And if there's anything you want us to be doing that we are not doing, or you have some cool ideas, please pass them our way. You can email us at idon'tknowherpodcast@gmail.com, or you can visit us on any of the social medias that we are on.
Yeah, and one thing I especially love, I love book recommendations, articles, things like that. People send us stuff like that, and we use it.
In fact, we had a person who listens to the show send us a book they wrote. So someday I want to talk about that book, because it's a cool book.
Alrighty.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Till next time, folks.
Till next time. Goodbye.